Okay, class, today we're going to talk about Saturn. Taking a look at Saturn, you can see that this planet looks different from our other outer planet that we talked about, Jupiter. So let's find out some of the similarities and some of the differences between these two planets. They're both made of gas. It's also very cold in the cloud tops of Saturn. It is a large planet, the second largest, which means only one planet is larger than it, Jupiter. It does take about 10.5 hours for it to spin around one time. And that means it spins around really fast, and it probably has a magnetic field just like Jupiter did, because it probably has liquid metallic hydrogen just like Jupiter did. It's going to take longer to go around the sun than Jupiter did because it's farther away. So it takes about 30 years to go around the sun. It does have a magnetic field that's 1,000 times stronger than the Earth's. It does have 82 moons. It's the king of moons currently. Let's talk about a couple of those moons. Please make sure that on your note sheet here that you are writing the number of moons down here, and then we're going to write this information about the two moons I'm going to talk about in here, just like you did about Jupiter. That's going to be important stuff. Make sure you get that info. So let's talk about Titan. Titan is the biggest moon of Saturn, and you can see some images of Titan here. This yellowish image on the bottom, that's the image that was taken by the Voyager spacecraft. Couldn't see through the thick atmosphere, but scientists were very excited that it had this extremely thick atmosphere. Then we sent other spacecraft that had radar so they could penetrate. That's the gray images, so you can see through the surface, and also infrared that allows us to see the surface of the planet. This moon is half the size of the Earth. The red part is important, the blue part is not, so write down the red and not the blue. It's the only moon with a thick atmosphere. It has nitrogen, argon, hydrocarbons, things that we'd find maybe in the early Earth's atmosphere. So similarities to that, we like the fact that it was like the early Earth's. We can learn from that. It's very cold there, and that's what makes life difficult there as well. Here's a picture from the surface. These look like rocks, but these are actually chunks of ice. The surface is kind of spongy. This is where the Cassini dropped the Huygens probe. The Cassini orbiter or orbiting standard dropped the Huygens probe. It came down to the surface. It took this picture on the surface when it was there. Also took this picture as it was parachuting through the atmosphere down to the surface. You can see these features that look kind of like rivers, and they have since analyzed all this imagery and seen that it has lakes and rivers, and it rains methane on the planet, which is really weird because methane on this planet is a gas. So those are some interesting things about Saturn's moon Titan. We wonder if, because it has a liquid, will that support life? Does it always have to be water? Let's go and learn about the other moon, which is Enceladus. Enceladus is the 6th largest moon of Saturn. You can see right here that this is Britain, and Enceladus compared to that. You can also see it's a very, very white colored planet, which probably implies that there's ice in it. So let's find out about Enceladus. It's the 6th largest moon. As I told you, it's made mostly of ice. It's very bright, which means the surface must be getting recoated, which means something's coming up from underneath, making these ice or snow on the surface. And they think it's geysers, or what might be called cryovolcanoes. So these are ice volcanoes, and it actually orbits inside one of the rings of Saturn. So very interesting moon, and the fact that it might have water beneath the surface. We actually flew a spacecraft right through this erupting cryovolcano to verify that indeed it is water ice that's being erupted off of the surface. So interesting, because it's a second moon now that we've talked about that might have water beneath the surface. And everywhere you find water on Earth, we find life. So that's kind of exciting for astronomers. More about Saturn itself. It has an atmosphere very similar to Jupiter's. The percentages of hydrogen and helium are slightly different. Some of the atmosphere features are going to sound familiar: winds, bands, and storms. They're just fainter, probably because it has less heating from the sun to produce differences in that. It has the lowest density of any planet in the solar system. If you could take Saturn, put it in some water, it would float, which is crazy. It does have these highly visible rings. The reason why they're so visible is they're made of ice, which reflects light real well. So we can see those rings very easily, not the rings of Jupiter. Some spacecraft have been there. The Voyager flew by in 1981. That's a 2-year difference between when it flew by Saturn and when it flew by Jupiter. Traveling at 25,000 miles per hour tells you that those two planets, they're really far apart, okay? I've already talked about the Cassini-Huygens spacecraft, and that quit working there in 2017. You're going to work on your alien project again, once again, trying to fill all this information out. If you've done all that, then you're going to draw on a piece of paper roughly the same size, a not aligned piece of paper, draw the alien, put all the information around it, underline it, put headings, make it tidy and colorful. It's due on the 20th.